Hello, beautiful people, and welcome, to Genshin Impact 4.5 Meta Roundup. Now, the Meta Roundup, I didn't do one last patch, and I wasn't sure I wasn't going to do one this patch, but it will be different. I've realized that over the Meta Roundups, I started repeating myself a lot. I think there's still some value in, like, going through what teams are doing specifically well or specifically poorly, but going through a list of all team archetypes isn't really something I'm going to be doing anymore. I'm just going to be going through the enemies and the sort of teams that are good against it. So, like, for example, for your first side, Chamber 1, you're going to have a bunch of AoE as well as single target and an enemy with a bunch of cryo and animal res. So I'd be like, okay, well, this is going to hurt these specific archetypes. You're going to need to choose a team that has AoE and single target, blah, blah, blah. Before we get any further though, this video is sponsored by Samsung Galaxy and the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. They're launching Galaxy Battles Genshin Impact, where I'll be competing against other creators for a $40,000 prize pool of both cash and Samsung devices. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be fighting other content creators like Dish, Grand, Doro, and a bunch of others to earn myself and my team of 3 other content creators some advantages leading up to a Grand Finals event that's going to happen on April 21st, so make sure you don't miss that. We'll be competing on the S24 Ultra itself, so its Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor will help make sure that we keep really high performance on the highest settings, while the larger vapor chamber cooling system is also going to help the phone stay relatively cool and prevent the temperature from rising too high. All that said, this is more than just a gaming phone. It also has a really high resolution camera that's perfect for any aspiring photographers or content creators out there. Make sure you check out my link in the description below to find out more about the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and get one for yourself. And let's get right into the rest of the video. So, Chamber 1. Veteran Frost Operative, Veteran Wind Operative, Large Overgrown Breacher Primus, and Pyro Abyss Mage. It's very frustrating, it's not fun, no one likes it. These guys are very, very small and move a lot, and as it turns out, when half of the Genshin characters, honestly, more so the 5 stars than the 4 stars, are given, ooh, wow, pretty animations with a bunch of flourish, a bunch of UI cluttering, it makes it so that small mobile enemies are really hard to see. And so you'll spend half of this chamber trying to figure out where they are. On top of that, they are actually pretty damn tanky. One specific feature that they have that hasn't been all that relevant in Abyss for a pretty long while is they are light enemies that are very vulnerable to both grouping abilities like Venti's Burst and fall damage. What that means is if you're struggling with this chamber specifically, you can try to abuse fall damage, either with units dedicated to it, like Jean with like hold E plus charge attack and stuff like that, which is gonna be a bit on the slower side, but like it'll work. Or you can just use a team that is going to knock the enemies up a lot. So for example,
one with nature.
right, you see there's, what was it, 150 gear or something like that fall damage. Oh, there we go. I didn't quite see that number, but I did see the health bar going down a decent amount.
Into the wind.
Oh, we were in burst animation for that number, but we saw the health bars going down a lot there as well. Point being, fall damage can help you a lot in some teams. In my opinion, out of all 3 chambers, I think all 3 can be the most difficult chamber for you, depending on what teams you have access to and the state of your account. Chamber 1, I think, is more so about either having strong resistance to interruption or a good way to keep the Fatui operatives crowd controlled or grouped. Then on the second half, we have the Jade Plume Terrashroom, and honestly, there's not much to say about this. It's a single target guy. He just stands there. If you're using Electro, he has a 1 out of 3 chance to run away when he does his enraged attack. So if your timing is really tight, like you're not the highest investment, you're struggling to get your 3-star clear, might have to reset if he does that attack, but otherwise should be fine. Next up, we have this chamber. And I think that the most annoying part of this is not the husks, it's the specters. I don't think the specters are that difficult, but there being 2 specters of each of these elements means that there are some archetypes that are actually going to struggle a lot just to get past the specters. Monopyro, Aggravate teams, and Nilo teams are the 3 that are going to struggle the most. Now, all of them can slot in alternatives to get through it anyways. In Mono Pyro, you can either play attack, Animo Crit, Kazuha, or just slot in an off-field damage dealer that isn't Pyro, like Fischl or Farina or whatever. But generally, the characters that are played in Mono Pyro also have other non-Mono Pyro teams, so it's not the end of the world. For Aggravate, you can use your Animo unit and self-infuse with Pyro. Right, you want to let yourself get hit by a Pyro attack so that you can absorb Pyro into a Kazuha burst, for example. And then for Nilo teams, you just have to use Hydro units that are not built with EM and that can actually like do some non-Dendro damage. So either without changing your build too much, you can go Clam on Kokomi if that's who you're using. This is going to be a little slow, but not that bad. You're just going to make sure your Clam is hitting both Dendro Specters. Otherwise, you can just use a Hydro unit like Singto, Yelan, Nevilet, whatever, who doesn't have to build EM in Nilo teams. You can also go Clan Barbara, I guess, yeah. And then you have 3 Whopper Flowers, which are really annoying because the teams that don't get countered by this generally take just a few seconds to kill them all. And then the Whopper Flowers spawn, and you just sit in the middle of a rotation. And there's a lot of teams where you're not gonna have enough damage to finish off the Whopper Flowers before the end of your rotation, especially because they move so much. So you're just gonna end up having to start another rotation on the Whopper Flowers, and that is gonna feel like shit. But hey, it is what it is. And then finally you have the Shadowy Husks. Now for these, you're gonna have to try to make sure you're staying close to the Cryo Archer, because it's the only one that doesn't have attacks that move it towards you. Keep in mind, if you get hit while you have a shield up, it's gonna be kind of rough. You're gonna give them a pyro shield and their attacks are gonna become stronger. So either don't bring a shield or try not to get hit while you have a shield. Also do keep in mind that even if you don't bring a shield, some of them have Geo attacks. So either if you have self-infusions or if you get hit by some of their non-Geo attacks, they can trigger Crystallize on you. And if you pick up that Crystallized shard, you will have a shield. Do keep that in mind. Next up, you have PMA. Also really not that much to say about it. Although for PMA, it is worth mentioning that PMA is such a buggy enemy that a bunch of characters have not necessarily bad matchups, but worse matchups than they usually do because of the bugs. Right, so for example, Aggravate teams that use Fischl tend to perform a bit worse against the PMA because Fischl's Ascension 4 passive hits a part of the enemy that doesn't have a hitbox. It just doesn't deal damage or apply Electro, which is very cringe. Very often, there are multiple attacks where Hu Tao's charge attacks won't hit the PMA. And finally, last chamber, we have Coplia, and we have Veteran Arithmetic Enhancer Mech, or the Pogo Elite from Fontaine Local Legends. And honestly, I like this enemy a lot, right? It deals enough damage that it feels relevant to dodge its attacks, but its attacks are actually dodgeable in ways that make it feel really fair. And it doesn't stall. It has a shield phase, but it's pretty clear how to take care of that, and you can speed that up by either using better matchups for it or just by understanding how it works. And you can also extend its downtime duration in the same ways. So, before we get into a run that showcases a few strategies you can use, let's talk a little bit about what sort of teams are going to do particularly well or particularly poorly in this Abyss. So the first team I want to look at is Nilo teams. And Nilo teams are actually not that bad this Abyss. The Dendro Specters are like intimidating, and the traditional Nilo teams won't necessarily be the best, but Nilo teams with Singto and Nilo teams with Yelan are gonna do a lot better than usual because this is an Abyss where you have both AoE and single target, right, on the first side, and the Hydro units that are good at single target that you can use in Nilo teams also tend to be units that you don't want to build full EM and you want to build for talent damage even in Nilo teams. And so it takes care of both the single target issue and the Dendro Spectre issue at the same time. Now, they're obviously still not going to be the best teams, but at least the ways they have to counter Chamber 3 and the ways they have to counter Chamber 2 are both coherent. They work well together. Other than that, as a general rule, right, any team that has pretty good AoE and isn't AoE only is going to tend to do well. Chamber 1, 2, 3, except Cryo and Animo teams. Now, Cryo and Animo teams are not very good on the first side of this Abyss because of Coplia. Coplia gets 70% resistances to Animo and Cryo at a baseline and increases those resistances by 25% during its climax, which it starts with in Abyss. Now you can reduce those resistances by applying Pneuma to it, but the resistances will go back up every time she sends out Coplius to spin around. Because of that, it makes it so that Animo and Cryo teams are going to do a lot worse than they usually would. And if you want to play an Animo or Cryo team, I'd try to do it on the second side. Although second side obviously is single target bosses only, so Freeze probably not going to be the best. I think this is one of the worst Abysses for Freeze we've had in a while, which is really unfortunate because Freeze is actually so good both on Chambers 1 and 2. If you really insist on playing a Cryo or Animo team and you're playing Farina, keep in mind the Pneumuzia attack that you need to reduce its resistances is the Pneuma one. So make sure you do a charge attack on Farina to swap the healing mode and do an attack, and then another charge attack to go back to her normal mode if you want to reduce its resistances. Then on the second side, any team that has a good single target will do. I know a lot of people have struggled with the mech. I think that it's more important to focus on your teams for first side than second side, because a lot of the things that can make the mech a little bit more difficult are things you can kind of work around by just playing better. Another important thing about the mech is once you break its shield, it becomes vulnerable to Pneuma attacks. And if you do a Pneuma attack, it's gonna knock it down, which is, it sounds like a good thing, but if you do it too early, it's gonna end up making it re-shield faster. Because generally, you break its shield, it finishes its current attack, it does one more attack, and then it shields back up. With Pneuma, you break its shield, you apply a Pneuma attack to it, it cancels his current attack, he does an attack while he's down, and then he gets back up. So ideally, you'd want to apply Pneuma to it after it's been down for a little while already. That means that characters, specifically carries, that apply Pneuma while attacking, like Lenny for example, don't necessarily have the best matchup against the mech. Anyways, let me gear very quickly. So, for this one, honestly, not that much to say.
Wind strike.
Speed of light, nowhere to hide. Hey!
Midnight Venta.
Don't blink, cut to the chase. Hey!
We need it last.
And then these annoying little shitters.
One with wind and cloud.
Fire incineration. Oz revealed by with sword comes shadow.
We're using a decent amount of fall damage here. Kazuha just by himself can offer your fall damage very easily, especially with Sack's sword.
Clouds high. The birds call.
Midnight.
The archetype that helps you the most with fall damage is generally Electrocharge, or anything that has Electrocharge on it, so Taser.
Wind strider.
Finish them off with fall damage, very cool.
Illusion shadow. Sasahu. Walking up.
Let the mighty be humble. Bow your head.
Of course. Picked up the wrong ball shot.
Shine down.
Silence.
Grow. Share my knowledge.
Be sanctified.
Picked up the wrong ball.
Bow your head.
For this one,
Stay put.
we want to let ourselves get hit by one of the pyro attack. You hit here and then dash.
Into the wind.
You'll get a pyro infusion.
Don't be scared. Don't blink.
Fallen leaves. Adorn my night.
And that will help you deal with the Electro Specters
Sword comes shadow. Incoming. Hey!
quite easily. Once that's done, you just play the chamber normally.
Strike.
Don't blink.
And even get some fall damage against the Wildflowers, just like we got against the Albertas.
Don't blink.
So, try to stay
Fallen leaves. Adorn.
on the cryo one, because it's the only one
Nowhere to hide.
that doesn't have an attack. that makes it go towards you.
Midnight, fantastic.
Clouds high. The birds.
Cut to the chase. Hey! Stronger than I thought.
Try not to die to the pyro aura, or the pyro burn that you get. And just finish them off. I'm an idiot. Oh my god.
Oz, reveal thyself.
One with nature.
My mouse keeps alt-tabbing. It's very frustrating. Anyways, not much to say on the on this side again, right? It's just BMA.
Commit to memory. Make yourself
As a reminder, against BMA,
Time beckon.
it'll phase once you get it to a certain HP threshold, and
Bow your head.
oh my god. And once it phases, it'll summon ads.
There is no escape.
Ads.
Silence.
And some of them are tankier than the others. So if you get an unlucky ad, you can restart. Jellyfish is pretty bad. The best one is the Dorito one.
Illusion shattered.
Bow your head.
This may hurt a little. Sharing my knowledge.
Let the mighty be humble.
But if you have enough damage, you won't necessarily have to restart for good RNG. And you are chilling. I really don't like this boss.
One with wind and cloud.
Did I get a fucking cryo infusion? Oh
Speed of
my
light.
god.
Clouds high. The birds call.
I got another. Okay, dude, this is.
Fallen leaves. Adorn my night.
With swords from shadow.
How did I get 3 of them?
Stay put.
Whatever, man. There's nothing to say about Coplia anyways. Finally, we have the mech. And for the mech, right, you want to swap to any character that has a weapon that has blunt plunge attacks. So claymores, polearms, and swords. Ideally, swords and claymores are better, with claymores being the best, because you can dash cancel the end lag of your plunge attack to start your next plunge attack faster. That's what we're gonna do. What you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to make sure you're paying attention to the shield's health bar and stopping a little bit before it's gone. And then you can start doing your setup,
Commit to memory. Make yourself.
and it's gonna effectively make it so that you spend more time with it being down.
There is no escape. This may hurt a little. Buckle up.
Let the mighty be humble.
Here is gonna shield back up. And then we just do it again. Oh, nice.
Illusion shattered.
Silence.
Commit to memory. Sharing my knowledge.
Shine down.
This may hurt a little. Look alive.
And just like that, you get it done. Anyways, I think that's gonna be it for this one. Let me know what you think about these shorter videos for the meta roundup. I really felt like I was repeating myself too much for the previous ones. Also, sorry that this video is coming out a decent amount later than they usually do. I really wasn't sure if I was gonna make it at all. So I know that it's coming out after the first phase of this abyss is already over, but hey, it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, YouTube.